This time on Psychic Investigators. In small-town Georgia, a man is murdered in his own bed.
It was a violent crime. It touched the very core of this community.
There are no witnesses and no murder weapon.
We didn't have much of anything.
But the family wants answers.
He didn't deserve this. Our family was desperate.
They call in psychic Phil Jordan. Can he find the killer among them?
I realize it's a woman. She's horrified herself she's doing it and amazed that she can do it.
Thomaston, Georgia, about an hour's drive from Atlanta. An old mill town that's seen better days. A sleepy little community where doors are left unlocked. That is, until one late summer day in 2002. 8:30 in the morning, September 9th. A neighbor arrives at Thomas Bragg's front door. Bragg, a roofer, has recently broken his leg in a fall. His neighbor has offered to take Bragg on some errands. When no one answers, the neighbor steps inside. In the bedroom, he makes a disturbing discovery.
When we arrived on the scene, Mr. Bragg was in the bed. He had the pillow over his face.
Sergeant Tim Ledbetter is the lead investigator.
He was tucked in the bed like somebody had placed him there.
But who? The killer? This is murder. Ledbetter calls the Georgia Bureau of Investigation for help. Special Agent Vaughn Estes immediately rules out robbery as the motive.
This doesn't look right. You've killed a man here in this room. You didn't take anything. You didn't disturb anything. Everything's still in its place.
This is TGA Action News. Mike Killerby reporting. A shocking discovery in Thomaston this morning. Police found the body of 46-year-old Thomas Bragg in his Fifth Avenue home. Police are asking anyone who has information about the case to call the Thomaston Police Department.
Tom's daughter from a previous marriage is stunned by the news.
My boss showed up and took me to my mother's house. Nobody would tell me anything. When I got to my mom's house, my mom told me what had happened to my dad. I was a daddy's girl. It was devastating.
Tom would do anything for anybody. He loved people. He was kind. I mean, Tom would give you the shirt off his back. He didn't deserve this.
Tom and his twin brother Tim ran a roofing company in Thomaston. Everyone knows them.
This case was a violent crime, and it touched the very core of this community. Everyone wanted closure to this case.
And they wanted answers.
Someone walked right in the front door, killed a man in the bed, and walked right back out the front door, and no one could believe that that could happen in Thomaston. It's a quiet, sleepy little town.
But there was nothing quiet about Tom's marriage. His wife, Mary Ann, had been meeting men on the internet.
Tim had been there earlier that day, and he said that they were fighting. My dad, he was pretty upset with the relationships that she had on the computer.
But they had always fussed and fought. They had never gotten along. So this was nothing new to me. I told Tim Ledbetter that Mary Ann did not kill Tom, but I knew there was someone out there who did.
Anytime you have a husband killed in the marital home, the spouse is going to be one of your top suspects.
When Mary Ann Bragg arrives home, she's informed of Tom's murder and taken in for questioning.
We took her into interview custody, towed her vehicle to check it out for any blood, any fibers.
But during that interview, something disturbing emerges. Marianne is not acting like the grieving wife.
There was no concern. There was no talk of the funeral. There was no talk of who killed my husband. There was no talk of anything emotional. It was very cold. During the interview, I was not getting the impression that she was a grieving widow. I was getting the impression that she had just been happily divorced.
The clothes that she had on was sent to the crime lab.
Despite Marianne's unusual behavior, police have little to go on. Her vehicle and clothes come back from the lab, and they're clean. Even her alibi checks out. She was in LaGrange, 30 miles away at her psychiatrist's. There is no hard evidence to tie Marianne Bragg to her husband's death. Weeks go by. Tom's friends, family members, co-workers, and neighbors are interviewed and re-interviewed. But nothing. With no new information, the case is going nowhere fast.
There was always that hope that something new would turn up. A little bit of information that could be the glue to put a lot of puzzle pieces together.
Weeks turn to months, then years. The investigation goes stone cold.
2 years after the homicide, we still didn't have much of anything. I was more or less at my wit's end.
You want to bring closure for these people, and when you know, beyond any shadow of a doubt in your mind, you know who did it, you know why they did it, but when you move from that into the trial, you have to have something substantial, and that's where we were not at. You may get one bite at the apple and miss.
We called the police department every week, but after so long, you kind of grow used to, not having hope.
I felt like Tom's murder will never be solved. I have got to find someone to help with this case.
And then one night, she does. Tom's sister sees a television program about Phil Jordan, a psychic who has helped police on hundreds of unsolved cases.
A psychic had never crossed my mind in my life.
You hear so many horror stories about psychics, but we were desperate.
When Linda calls Jordan at his home in upstate New York, all he asks for is a photo of the victim. No other information.
When I work a police case, I take a picture of the person involved in the case, and I look at that picture and mentally perceive them as if it's like an intense daydream or a video going on in my head. Sometimes it moves rather slowly, but most of the time it moves very, very rapidly. It's very much like I'm walking with that person.
December 2004, Phil Jordan and Linda Hunt talk over the phone. Phil records the session. What he says next could reignite the case, but will the police listen?
Some sort of a blunt instrument, but having a sharp edge on one side of it.
Thomaston, Georgia, a man is bludgeoned to death in his own bed. After 2 years, the case is cold. Desperate for answers, the family contacts psychic Phil Jordan, who immediately zeroes in on the murder weapon.
Some sort of a blunt instrument, but having a sharp edge on one side of it. There's going to be a white one-story building. Maybe would have been doctor's offices or something of that nature. And it feels like there's got to be a man connected with that somehow has knowledge of or was involved in the commission of the crime.
A white building. A blunt object. What does it mean?
When I hung up that phone, I was on cloud nine. I knew we were fixing to get some help with Tom's murder.
Thomas was a twin, and I can't perceive anything like that happening to my twin or a sibling and having it be unresolved. So I felt, for Linda's sake as well as for Thomas's sake, I had to do what I could to help resolve this case.
But will the police take the word of a psychic seriously?
I wasn't comfortable talking with Phil. I was always taught the scientific way of doing a case. You know, going for the evidence, going for the fibers, going for the fingerprints. Someone that saw something that didn't see something, I never believed. But we heard several things that nobody else would have known about the case except for the ones that were working the case. We still felt that Mary Ann was the key suspect, but still in 2004 we did not have the proper evidence to convict her, but we were still hopeful.
7825, code 6, 105 North Avenue.
Although skeptical, the police have nothing to lose. They decide to bring Jordan to Thomaston.
First place we went to was the location of the murder. No one had lived there since the murder.
7825, code 6.
We allowed Phil to be on his own. We let him guide us.
You immediately begin to feel the morbidity, the darkness of what happened there. My psychic self takes over, and I walk through the house as if the house is furnished, as if people are living there, as if I'm with them on the day and time that the crime took place.
He kept seeing dollar signs. He mentioned that the reason that Thomas was killed was a good possibility that the motive was for money. When Phil, he was giving us the impression of what he saw, he didn't know that we knew about the insurance policy. We didn't tell him that we knew about the insurance policy.
The police know that Mary Ann took out a $25,000 life insurance policy 7 months before Tom's death. But that on its own isn't enough to build a case.
And to the left, there's a room that's intriguing to me, psychically intriguing. There's something about that room. So I go in and I stand in the middle of the room, and I realize this is where this man died.
He ended up taking us into the room where the murder had occurred without us even telling him where it was. He was able to tell us where the bed was laying, how Thomas was laying in the bed that nobody else knew about. It kind of hit home. It really did.
Now the psychic seems to be channeling the victim.
Suddenly, I'm hit in the head. I can't move. This is somebody I knew, somebody that I loved. Why are they doing this to me?
Even more chilling. Now he becomes the killer.
I realize it's a woman. She's horrified herself she's doing it, and amazed that she can do it.
How the person was swinging the item. He gave us the picture of a hammer, where she might have stood. nobody knew at the time other than us.
Suddenly I had this feeling that I've got to go to a different location. I leave the room, tell the detectives we've got to get in the car, and I will direct you to where we have to go.
He wanted to get in the car and drive. He said he had a strong feeling that he needed to take us somewhere.
I just wait and see why I'm going where I'm going.
He'd never been here before in his life, didn't know the town, didn't know the streets. He told me to start turning at certain roads.
Now we have to go 2 blocks. We'll turn left. I say we have to go to the end of the street. And turn right.
We turn into a driveway, and I guess this is when I get cold chills, just thinking about looking back over it. At the same time, I was getting cold chills then.
There's something about that apartment that is connected to this crime.
In Thomaston, Georgia, psychic investigator Phil Jordan is helping the police find the killer of Thomas Bragg. Jordan leads them to a house. But why this one?
We turn into a driveway, which was an apartment complex. We pulled right in front of Mary Ann Bragg's front door, where Mary Ann Bragg was living at this time. How?
And I tell them the second apartment from the end is psychically intriguing to me. There's something about that apartment that is connected to this crime, and there is no doubt in my mind.
That was just amazing.
Without being told anything, Jordan has taken the cops straight to their original prime suspect's new home. They are convinced now, more than ever, that Mary Ann Bragg killed her husband. Before leaving Thomaston, Jordan offers the police more intriguing psychic clues.
I sense copper, Louisiana, Texas, when I left Georgia, they said this case is going to end in conviction, and I knew that it would be resolved.
Then, a few weeks later, the cryptic clues, copper, Louisiana, and Texas, become clear when an anonymous phone tip leads the police to Mary Ann's best friend.
And her name was Penny Carter. So we thought, copper, Penny. And when we started looking for Miss Carter, she was no longer in Georgia.
When they first interviewed Penny after the murder, she said nothing. Now, guided by Phil Jordan, the police track her down in Beaumont, right on the Texas-Louisiana border.
Phil was on the track again. We were probably less than 30 miles from the Louisiana border and on the other side of Texas where we located her. We took her to one of the local police departments where we sat down and interviewed her.
She drops a bombshell.
Penny had been told by Mary Ann, not on one occasion, but 2 occasions, that she had killed Thomas.
Phil Jordan's extraordinary insights and Penny Carter's explosive new information reignite the case.
Take everyone's case file, everyone's interview, and categorize everything and get everything in a workable order, and then see what you have.
Investigators re-examine Mary Ann's alibi for the time of the murder, a psychiatric appointment in LaGrange. Mary Ann's psychiatrist has steadfastly refused to break doctor-patient confidentiality.
White, one-story building, maybe would have been doctor's offices. Got to be a man connected with that somehow has knowledge of the crime.
But could the psychic be right? Does the key to this case lie in his session notes with Mary Ann on the morning of the murder?
We were able to get the judge to issue the search warrant. We thought the information that was involved was more important than the patient confidentiality. And we were right.
That was a pivotal piece of information. She's reporting to her psychiatrist, my husband's dead before the body's been discovered.
I thought she was telling me the truth, and I believed her for a long time.
Mary Ann Bragg is arrested on November 7th, 2005. 10 months later, the trial begins.
Miss Bragg, did you kill your husband?
No, sir.
The prosecution argues that Mary Ann Bragg struck her husband repeatedly on the left side of the head with a blunt instrument, covered his head with a pillow, and left for her doctor's appointment in LaGrange. As the trial unfolds, it becomes clear that Phil Jordan's visions were dead on. First, the cryptic connection to copper when Penny Carter tells the court what Mary Ann told her.
What would you do or say if I killed Tom?
Did you go to the police?
No, I didn't. I was scared.
Then, the doctor's notes from the morning of Tom Bragg's murder.
Did Mary Ann Bragg see Dr. Andrews that day?
The notes say that she did.
Heath English is the assistant district attorney.
The doctor's log indicated when he met with Mary Ann, she was quite upset. The reason for her state that morning was that her husband had been found dead. At that point in time, no one had contacted Mary Ann Bragg.
And finally, the motive.
The main motive in this particular case was money.
After a 4-day trial, Mary Ann Bragg is found guilty and sentenced to life in prison. Her lawyers immediately file an appeal.
When talking to people, and they ask me who is the most cold and diabolical and ruthless person I've ever encountered, I say the name Mary Ann Bragg.
Without the visions of psychic Phil Jordan, the evidence leading to her conviction may never have been found. How did he see what no one else could?
I think many times people's skepticism allows them to close a door that they may have wished could have been left open.
Her statements to Penny, the statements made to the doctor, helped bring everything together. And without those two, to this day, I don't think you have a complete picture.
Dealing with Phil throughout this case, it opened my mind to think more outside the box.
Phil Jordan, with the help of the detectives, I give all the credit to. Phil Jordan is my hero.
This time on Psychic Investigators, a young woman is abducted in broad daylight.
Where is she? Who has her?
Police think it could be murder.
There was blood on the handgun.
But no one knows for sure.
You could hear the buzzing before we saw the flash.
Until a psychic relives the crime.
That's when she leaped into my body. She was so terrified.
Will the psychic help to solve the mystery of what happened to the flower girl? Denton, Texas, on the outskirts of Dallas-Fort Worth, a university town. a town that likes to party, where booze and bars can sometimes mean trouble, like the trouble that erupted late afternoon, July 1st, 1996.
A girl that I know was kidnapped. Big white burly guy in a black late model Chevy pickup. You saw that? Yes. I took off with her. It's about 5 minutes ago.
You'd get calls like this basically every weekend when the bars were open to 2 a.m. in the morning. The two witnesses, patrolmen, saw that both of them had been drinking and didn't believe what they said and thought possibly that it was just a domestic disturbance.
The witnesses know the woman they saw kidnapped. She's 36-year-old Diana Goldston, a local photographer who also makes extra money selling roses in the clubs and bars around Denton. People call her the Flower Girl.
She would give her shirt off of her back to you if she felt you needed it more than she did.
Diana is also a part-time bartender at the Red Derby, the location of the abduction.
The owner of the Red Derby called and said that something had happened to my sister.
I got a call from my daughter. She said that Diana was taken from the street and kidnapped.
The witnesses gave the police the license plate number of the truck. They trace it to the address of Carrie Griffin, ex-wife of John Robert, J.R. Griffin, a known felon from California on parole.
Very, very strong, very muscular guy. He scared people.
A rookie detective is sent out to question J.R. Griffin's ex-wife. Carrie Griffin says that her ex-husband had been at the house on the day in question, and he had a woman with him. From Carrie's description, the detective assumes the woman is Diana Goldston.
Wrote in his report she was with J.R. Griffin and appeared okay.
Satisfied that it may be a simple domestic dispute, the police put the case to one side. But it was not okay. 10 days go by, and still no word from Diana. Her mother desperately wants answers.
They weren't taking it seriously, and I said, she's missing, she's gone. Something's wrong. Please help me.
The police revisit the case, and Detective Dave Stewart is put in charge.
They'd already started it in motion, talked to a few people, but then when I came in, we started having to interview all the other witnesses.
Also assigned to the case, Detective Kenny Kirkland re-interviews Carrie Griffin. His experience tells him she knows more than she's saying.
Indeed, that was not the whole truth, that there was more to the story.
Kirkland gets her to admit that she was scared of her ex-husband and that the woman with JR wasn't Diana Goldston, but his girlfriend, Jeanette Cox.
That Jeanette Cox was there with him, that Diana Goldston was not, and that J.R. Griffin had blood on him.
You in touch with him since?
The story Carrie Griffin tells breaks the case wide open.
Okay, sure, no problem.
Carrie Griffin says JR asked her neighbor for help. The truck was stuck at the lake. The lake is Lake Ray Roberts, a heavily wooded 6,000-acre state park just outside of Denton. What was JR doing up there? And why did he have blood on his shirt? The neighbor takes Kirkland to the spot where JR was stuck.
When we first walked up to the area, we could see a jacket hanging in a tree that had blood on it. We could see the trail where a body was dragged. You could hear the buzzing before we saw the flies. And the blowflies were just all on the top of it. They're also called death flies. There was a pool of blood and body fluids. There was lots of blood there.
The police bring in dogs trained at detecting human remains.
Cadaver dogs hit on that area that we were. They hit on the jacket.
They gather the evidence at Lake Ray Roberts and compare it to DNA from Diana Goldston.
We matched all of these things to the blood that was on the ground, to DNA that we had gathered from Diana Goldston's hair that she left in a brush at her house.
And it all matches.
We knew that that's where Diana had been before he moved her.
Even without her body, the police are now convinced the Flower Girl is dead.
I went out in my backyard and screamed and yelled and cried and talked to God. but it really didn't help. She was gone.
Warrants are issued. In J.R. Griffin's house, the police find a shotgun and a .38 revolver. Traces of blood are found on the revolver. In the pickup truck, the police also find trace elements of blood.
We were able to get DNA from that, which would match us up to Dinah Golston.
In the state of Texas, without a body, police cannot lay a murder charge. But they do have enough evidence to charge J.R. Griffin and his girlfriend Jeanette Cox with aggravated kidnapping. But where is Diana Golston? And what exactly happened to her? All of Denton wants to know. The police drag the lake. There's a massive ground search.
It was very emotional for the whole town as well as the police department. We wanted justice. All of us did. We left no stone unturned.
And still, nothing. Weeks, then 3 months go by, and with J.R. and his girlfriend not talking, the police are at a dead end. A colleague suggests a psychic who had worked with police in a nearby county.
Police officers are cynical by nature, and we don't believe anything that anybody tells us, much less a psychic that tells you things from the dead or from other places.
Despite his skepticism, the detective gives the psychic a call.
He wanted to know if I would be willing to work on this young woman who was missing. And he said, would you be willing to come to Denton, Texas?
Carol Pate has worked with police around the U.S. on many cases. She uses a method she calls psychometry.
That's holding an object, a photograph. It's kind of like tuning in a radio station for me. Once I've got that signature frequency of that individual, then I can become one with them. So I'm sort of them for that time frame. Then I can see and feel and know.
But will the psychic be able to see what happened to the flower girl?
Pretty much floored all of us. We were shocked. Hey, what
A woman abducted outside a Texas bar has been missing for weeks, presumed dead. Police bring in psychic Carol Pate from her home in Arkansas. Can she see what the police cannot?
We were very frustrated, but we needed some closure for the family and for us in the police department.
In the squad room, the detectives put the psychic to the test.
We did not give Carol Pate any information whatsoever. We figured if she was truly who she said she was, that she would be able to do these things. We got together several pictures, and some of them were people not involved in the crime, and some were people involved in it. We had not released any of the pictures of people in the press.
So I did each photograph. The girl was scared to death. She was murdered.
All of us in the room were just silent.
This one is the murderer. He was heavy into drugs and that he had zero conscience, none. This one is his girlfriend. And she was there at the time of the murder.
We were shocked for the fact that she was able to take just pictures and tell us what each person did and what their part was in that crime. She just reaffirmed that. I don't know of anybody that can do that.
What else can the psychic see? Without telling her anything, Detective Kirkland drives Carol to the scene of the abduction, the parking lot of the Red Derby Bar.
This young girl, I saw her in front of a nightclub, and she sold flowers. This was where I felt a lot of violence here. This was where the abduction took place. He believed this girl had stolen money from him.
Where's my money?
She was so terrified. And then that's when she leaped into my body. I was going through the struggle that she was going through. And all of a sudden, I'm shot.
She said she could feel it, just like as if she was Diana Goldston. I can feel the searing heat. I can feel that I'm bleeding. That is a possibility. The two witnesses, I remembered that they said a shot had been fired, but no one had said that Diana Goldston was shot. We were going down toward the lake. As we drove by one area, she said, this part here has something to do with Diana Goldston.
Still channeling the spirit of Diana, the psychic calls out directions as she claims to relive Diana Goldston's last moments.
She's bleeding heavily, and I look to either side of me and I see a woman, and I see a man to my left side, and these people are fighting her and holding her.
She said, I can feel what Diana Goldston feels. They're hitting me, and they're keeping me down, and I'm begging for my life.
And she said, turn to the right. Here, turn left.
She leads the detective to Lake Ray Roberts.
She said, this is where it occurred. This is where Diana Goldston lost her life. This lake is huge. Lake Ray Roberts is a big place. And to be able to narrow it down to one place, it's pretty astounding.
I feel the man and the girl taking her out of the truck. There's a jacket, and he takes it off, and he throws it on a limb in a tree.
Shocked that she was able to do that.
And I saw him dragging my body through the woods. And they just lay me down. And I guess they thought I was gonna just bleed to death there. And they walk away. And then I feel them coming back. And the man, he stomps my throat with his big boot. I die.
How could the psychic know so much? Carol Pate not only confirmed where police believe Diana Goldston died, but she offers insight into how she died.
I can't explain that.
Forensics have given some of the details in the case, but with J.R. Griffin and Jeanette Cox saying nothing, Carol Pate is the only one to paint a full picture of Diana's last moments alive.
Carol left me some drawings that depicted where she believed Diana Goldston had been taken and laid down a final resting place.
There was some graffiti close to a bridge, and the graffiti, that was done like in red. That S was like in red. And there was a cross, and then that Y, and there was this barrel, and I felt like she at one point was placed either in the barrel or around this barrel. Basically, when I draw these pictures, it's what I'm seeing in my head, what the picture that flashes in my head, period. And I try to transpose that picture in my head onto the piece of paper. And I try to get as much detail as possible.
But 5 months after the Flower Girl's abduction, there's still no sign of Diana's body. The trial of J.R. Griffin begins. He pleads not guilty.
He believed that the police could not touch him, that he was invincible, that nobody could get him. Everything that we gathered together was a circumstantial case, but it was a good enough case because we'd pieced it together.
Leanne Breeding is the prosecutor.
Our goal was to get him convicted and have him spend as much time in the penitentiary as the law allowed. Without a body, it's hard to prove an exact cause of death that stands up on appeal. And so you take the route where you think you have the better case for the evidence. In this case, it was the aggravated kidnapping.
To the end, J.R. Griffin maintains his innocence. But the jury finds him guilty, and he's sentenced to 40 years.
In Texas, juries decide the punishment. And for him to be sentenced to life imprisonment on an aggravated kidnapping case, that's the most he could get.
You know, instead of being just this flower girl that he swatted away, suddenly now she was important to the jury. And it was this one person he wasn't even afraid of and thought couldn't do anything that put him behind bars permanently.
We asked him again if he would just tell us where she was, that we would not pursue murder charges and he could not get the death penalty in the state of Texas. We wanted to find the body of Diana Golston to add some closure to her family. And his response to myself and David Stewart at that time was that you will never find the body of Diana Golston.
With J.R. Griffin in prison and his girlfriend Jeanette Cox saying nothing while she awaits her trial, the police have only the visions of a psychic to explain how Diana died. But that was about to change.
I remembered what Carol Pate told me. I remembered it all. It indeed did come to be true.
In Denton, Texas, J.R. Griffin has been found guilty of the abduction of Diana Golston. The police are sure she's dead, but J.R. won't reveal what happened or where her body is.
So about 3 o'clock, I wrote J.R. a letter while he was in prison to tell me what he did with Diana, and he wrote me an 11-page letter back, kind of called me a bunch of names, and keeps denying it. He won't talk about it. He keeps saying it's somebody else that did it.
I think J.R. Griffin is one of the most evil men you would ever meet. Any man that has the ability to put closure for a family and he just totally ignores them, he's evil.
I even wrote to Griffin in prison. In his letters to me, he said, I'll probably die in here, and I thought, good. He denied everything, saying his friend Cox knew more than she was telling.
Then, 2 years after the abduction, an unexpected development, and the mystery of how Diana died is finally solved. In exchange for a reduced sentence and no trial, Griffin's accomplice talks.
Jeanette told us everything that we didn't know because she was actually there. And she gave details that only a person that was present would know what happened.
So he was wanting to go to Denton and told me he had to collect some money. And he just a couple days beforehand, he mentioned about someone stealing his wallet.
Hey, where's my money?
J.R. killed the wrong person because it was all over $400 that someone had taken out of his wallet. It wasn't Diane that stole the money, but she died as a result of something else that somebody else did.
Diana Golston had never done anything to J.R. Griffin. She died for nothing.
And he just yanked her up and started shoving her towards the truck. At that time, I hear the gun go off, and I'm very scared. And he says, get her in the truck.
Get her in there. And my reaction was just that I've heard this before from Carol.
Shot. All I can't remember anymore of the trip because I'm struggling with her to keep her down. He's telling me to keep her down. I punched her once or twice, maybe 3 times.
I'd heard this also from Carol Pate. She told me this is what happened.
And then when he got to the lake where he dumped her,
I helped him lift her legs up. She's still breathing. I was walking back to the truck, and out the corner of my eye, I see him drag her up further under the tree area, and it looked like he stepped on her neck. Just kind of smashed it like a cigarette butt. And I acted like I didn't see him. I'm so afraid.
What this does, it sets the wheels in motion. If we ever find Diana,
J.R. Griffin can and most likely will be tried for murder and be put to death.
But can she tell the police where to find Diana's body and seal J.R. Griffin's fate?
Do you have any idea where she may be?
No.
For making the deal, Jeanette Cox receives a sentence of 20 years in prison. Eerily, Jeanette's account closely mirrors the psychic's visions of the crime. And what about Carol Pate's drawings of Diana's burial place? Detective Kenny Kirkland is hopeful.
Carol Pate had gotten several things right in dealing with this case. And so I've kept those drawings, so when we do find the body, I want to be able to compare it to what Carol drew on this paper.
It is probably one of the harder things to do, is to locate a body, because that energy is dead. The physical energy is dead. So I'm having to pick up on the remnants of what was there psychically.
Carol Pate obviously has some special gifts to be able to do things that a normal person cannot do. She was able to tell us things about this case she knew nothing about. It was pretty phenomenal that she was able to do that.
For Detective Dave Stewart, the case never closed.
I need to find Diane before I retire. That is my one goal in life, I hope, as an officer, is to put this case to rest.
I would love for my mother and my daughter and me to have a place to go and pay our respects to her. That would be amazing.
I wanted a body, I wanted a funeral. I wanted a place that I could go talk to her instead of her picture.
I feel Diana will eventually be found given time. I know that the family needs closure. They need to be able to say goodbye. And who knows, maybe I'll have a part in it.
This time on Psychic Investigators. A wealthy businesswoman vanishes on a shopping trip to Tucson.
We've seen a number of homicides, robberies, kidnappings.
Is it kidnapping or something else? The police have their suspicions, but no proof.
He was tall and handsome. He could talk snow off a snowflake, and he took over her life.
A psychic warns the police to act fast.
I just got a really, really bad feeling.
Or the truth could stay buried forever. Tucson, Arizona, 70 miles from the Mexican border. A city shaped by the surrounding desert. A dramatic backdrop to the story that was about to unfold on December 13th, 2004. At 6 p.m., 67-year-old Ta Benderly frantically approaches the security desk at Park Place Mall. His partner is missing. He tells the guards he dropped Loretta Bowersock off at Dillard's department store at 2 o'clock and arranged to pick her up at 4. He's been looking for her for the last 2 hours. The police are called, and Detective Fabian Pacheco is put in charge of the case.
Tucson, unfortunately, has seen its fair share of homicides, robberies, kidnappings. We do take each and every one of those investigations seriously.
Immediately, Pacheco recognizes the name of the missing woman. Loretta Bowersock and her daughter Terry own a successful chain of furniture stores. Their commercials have been on the air for 20 years.
Thanks to you and Ma, Terry's consignment furniture has expanded again. There's a beautiful Bernhardt sofa, and you saved $1,400.
Police kick the search into high gear.
They had searched all of the Dillard store to include the Park Place Mall, the surrounding neighborhoods, without any success.
At first, Pacheco wonders if Loretta may have been abducted for ransom. After all, she is a high-profile millionaire.
Todd Benderly made some indications regarding a possibility of Loretta being kidnapped by some individuals in a white van. And this information further heightened our response to this investigation.
Taw calls Loretta's daughter in Phoenix.
I jumped in my car and drove down to Tucson in 45 minutes, which is normally about an hour and a half. I just remember feeling very frantic. The fear of her being kidnapped was probably the worst for me. I started getting hold of all of the local newspaper because I'd been on the news a lot. And I got pictures of her off of Taw's computer, and we started making posters right away.
Terry and Loretta were like Arizona's success story. We had watched them grow up on television. They started their business together, the consignment business. They were in our living rooms for 20 years.
My mother was a very smart lady. She was very attractive, very talented, full of life.
For 18 years, Loretta has shared that life with Taw Benderly. The story Taw tells police is that they left Tempe, the Phoenix suburb where they live, that morning for a 5-day vacation. They checked into the Residence Inn in Tucson at 12:30 p.m. and went to the mall at 2 o'clock. Police check mall security cameras and make a startling discovery.
We saw that there was no Loretta to be found anywhere within that video.
Does that mean there's something wrong with Taw's story? Taw said he searched for Loretta in the mall for 2 hours.
The video surveillance actually shows them coming into the Dillard's department store and almost immediately going straight to the customer service counter and reporting her as a missing person.
Police get a search warrant for Taw's hotel room and ask Terry to look through her mother's belongings.
There was a lot of stuff all over the bed that he had taken down, guns and ammunition taken from my mother's house. There was a lot of valuables there. But I think probably the most crucial moment was when I saw the jewelry. That probably was the first moment where I thought this wasn't just kidnapping, this was something else.
But what? Police search his vehicle and make an incriminating find. A shovel and a pickaxe.
Those are red flags right away, especially looking at these tools that look like they have dirt and dust on them like they've been used.
Detective Pacheco contacts the police in Tempe. They get a warrant to search Taw and Loretta's home. And in the garage, another disturbing find. Detective Trent Luckow is with the Tempe police.
They found a van parked there, and in the back of the van they found a purse, and inside that purse there were credit cards and a checkbook and ID that all came back to Loretta Bowersock.
The purse, the pickaxe, the valuables, it all points to foul play.
Based on evidence that we had, we were confident that Loretta had never made it to Tucson.
Tucson police bring Taw in for questioning. He's defensive and, curiously, unconcerned about his missing partner.
You need to respect the fact that I'm trying to give you information in as clear a form as I can. I was not prepared to have to account minute for minute for my time.
plain and simple, is she never made it down here. This whole thing is going to come down like a deck of cards.
The police believe they have a murder on their hands, but without a body, they cannot lay charges. They let Taw Benderly go and put him under surveillance. But Terry isn't content to just sit back and wait. She hears from a friend about a psychic who might be able to help. Mary Ann Morgan is a medium with international credentials and her own radio program.
I'm clairvoyant, clairaudient, which means I talk to those on the other side. The capability of like jumping time with my mind, like look at everything on a TV screen and it plays out in front of me.
Terry calls Mary Ann at her home in Bethany, Oklahoma.
It's never easy when you tell somebody that they love has crossed over, especially when they've been murdered.
Arizona businesswoman Loretta Bowersock has been missing for 2 days when a psychic shares a devastating vision with the woman's daughter. Not only is she dead, she's been murdered.
I think that it took a little while for me to get through, and it was hard to hear those things.
Using her paranormal powers, Mary Ann Morgan claims to see Loretta's last moments.
I kept getting all these visions of screaming and yelling in a fight. And then I saw somebody coming up from behind and putting something over somebody's head. Then I saw somebody suffocating, fighting to save their life. And the more she fought, the worse it was. And then eventually there was just no life at all.
Then the killer appears before the psychic.
When I started seeing this man, I described him in depth and in detail to Terry, and she said, yes, this is the person that her mother had been involved with for a very long time. And I said, Terry, you don't know this man. This man has lied to you. He's got all kinds of money problems, all kinds of financial things that he's created. He's a con artist. And she understood that. However, she really didn't want to believe it.
And there's another psychic bombshell for Terry.
I saw Loretta Bowersock open the door and her be handed a set of papers, and I saw how angry she got, and I knew that the house was in foreclosure, and this was something that she had no idea about.
I said, that's crazy. There's no way that my mom would let her house go into foreclosure. She loved her house.
Could the psychic be right? Terry decides to tell the police about the foreclosure.
We don't use psychics. We're more into the modern forensics, the DNA, the fingerprinting, certain other things that we can do as homicide detectives. But psychics, I'd never used one. I was skeptical.
And I said, you know, all I know is there seemed to be some things that she described that seemed to be accurate. And with us not having any leads coming in, I said it really couldn't hurt.
We did a financial investigation, and that's where we realized this home was in foreclosure. Nobody knew that. That was really astounding, and began to think, well, maybe the psychic could be of service.
In the meantime, the police continue to pull apart Taw's alibi. Taw says he and Loretta left Tempe at 10 a.m. and checked into their Tucson hotel at 12:30. However, the desk clerk says he checked in at 2:48, alone. And his credit card and bank receipts also tell a different story. At 11 a.m., he used his credit card to buy 2 baseball caps at the outlet mall. And at 1:15, he bought 2 sandwiches at the truck stop, just 4 miles down the highway.
We are now faced with a 2-hour block of time that we're trying to determine where exactly was he. And it's very important to us to account for that time.
Police think that during that time, Taw was busy burying Loretta's body somewhere in the Sonoran Desert.
We were headed in a direction to prosecute Taw Benderly for the murder of Loretta Bowersock.
Then, an explosive turn of events. 1 week after Loretta's disappearance, the psychic has another revelation.
All of a sudden flashed before me this vision of Taw Benderly. And I just got a really, really bad feeling. Either this man's going to kill himself or he's going to try to escape.
The net is tightening. All the evidence of Loretta's disappearance points to Taw Benderly. The psychic immediately calls Detective Pacheco.
We were very concerned for Taw Benderly's welfare. Obviously, we don't want anyone to harm themselves. And most importantly, we still don't know where Loretta is. If something ever happens to Taw, the chances of finding Loretta are gone along with him.
At Mary Ann's insistence, the police check up on Taw. He seems fine. The next day, Terry calls Taw several times, but he doesn't answer. In a panic, she contacts the police.
At that point, police probably need to go out there and make sure that he's okay and that he's fine, or that he had not fled. When police entered the house, they found Taw hanging from an extension cord in the garage.
All Taw Benderly left was a suicide note saying he is gone to join Loretta, but nothing about how she died or where her body is located.
What a coward. Not only did this man kill himself, he took all the clues with him on where Loretta was. He never said, here's what I did and here's where she is. This SOB went to hell not telling anybody where Loretta was.
The psychic was dead right about Taw's suicide. But can she help to find Loretta Bowersock? Taw Benderly has taken the secret of Loretta Bowersock's burial place with him to the grave.
Knowing that he had just committed suicide, I lost all the hope of finding out really what happened, if he'd been the one that killed her, and where was she.
When I found out that Taw Benderly had committed suicide, I was thinking about what Mary Ann had told me. I was thinking, what else could we have done? Once the main suspect is dead, there's nobody to prosecute. The case is closed. The only thing left in this investigation to do is to find the remains of Loretta.
But where is she? 3 weeks after her disappearance, the police are no closer to finding her body.
I needed to know what had happened. You know, how was she killed? Was she shot? Was she cut up? Had he bashed her? When you don't have how somebody died, it just makes you crazy.
Desperate, Terry invites psychic Mary Ann Morgan to Tempe. Maybe she can see something the police have missed. They start in the place where Taw took his own life, the garage of Loretta and Taw's soon-to-be repossessed house.
We went out to the garage. A very, very cold entity came to be present with us. I said, Terry, Taw's here in the garage with us. And about that time, he jumped into my mind, and he started screaming. He says, she's in the desert. She's in the desert. I told you she's in the desert. It was just very powerful and overwhelming. I knew this was going to be very hard to tell Terry, but unfortunately, I saw her mother wrapped in plastic, almost mummified. And I saw her buried in a very shallow grave.
The desert, A likely place to dump a body. Police already suspect Taw has buried Loretta in the Sonoran, but the psychic sees specific, unique details.
I could see that there was blue. I felt like I was surrounded with blue. And then I heard children laughing. And I could see and I could hear children going around and around on a merry-go-round. So I thought, oh my gosh, that's going to be the biggest, one of the biggest keys to this is that she is not even 150 yards from this merry-go-round.
A merry-go-round, the color blue. Marianne shares the details with the police, who have a lead of their own. Taw made a cell phone call around the time police think Loretta was buried. Detective Landon Rankin of the Pinal County Sheriff's Office led the search for Loretta Bowersock.
Mr. Benderly's cell phone had pinged on a certain cell phone tower in Central Arizona in our jurisdiction of Pinal County.
The cell phone records showed Taw had made a phone call at 12:30 in the Sonoran Desert, 94 miles from the hotel in Tucson, where he told police he was. And he had made that call during the 2-hour time gap that he couldn't account for.
I believe it was his dentist had called, so Mr. Benderly opened up his cell phone, returned the phone call. So that basically put his footprint in our area.
The police think Taw was burying Loretta's body in this area of the desert. But even with hundreds of volunteers, they're looking for a needle in a vast haystack.
People who ask the question, how hard is it to find a body in the desert, have never been to the desert. The desert is so enormous. I mean, even with clues, you can't find a body in the desert.
6 months pass, and there's no sign of Loretta. With limited resources, the police halt the search. But Terry Bowersock refuses to give up. For the next few months, each Saturday, locals and tourists alike scour the desert for Loretta Bowersock's body.
Every day that I'd be out searching, I remember I would just think of her and just how important it was not to spend the rest of my life wondering. I wasn't about to let her stay in the desert. That wasn't going to happen. I was going to find her.
Terry was searching every day. I finally just had to tell her that it was not her karma to find the body, that hikers were going to be in the desert about a year later from the time that she disappeared, and that they would come upon the body.
In January 2006, just 150 feet from an abandoned motel, a family out hiking stumbles on a human skull. Dental records confirm these are the remains of Loretta Bowersock.
The teeth that I had noticed had fillings. More specifically, was I saw some porcelain veneers on her, sort of her front teeth.
When I was told that she was finally found, it was like, oh, thank God. It was a relief to know, I could stop chasing. I did need to have closure. It was amazing when I drove out there. There was a blue motel. It's like when you got there, you went, how did we not see this much blue somewhere? But we stopped just short of that, 5 miles, before that area.
An autopsy reveals the actual cause of death: asphyxiation by a plastic bag.
When I was first at scene and saw the plastic, I thought it might have been just skin. But we went to the autopsy and it saw that the plastic bag was completely over her head. It came full circle with Marianne's prediction. It was exactly as she had said.
The police reconstruct Loretta's last hours alive. On December 13th, Loretta discovers the foreclosure notice on the house. At 3:33, she makes the first of 17 phone calls to the bank. They confirm her worst fears. Her partner of 18 years has been embezzling the mortgage payments. When she confronts Taw, he panics Fearing his web of lies is about to be exposed, he sneaks up behind her, places a plastic bag over her head, and suffocates her, just as the psychic predicted.
After being involved in this case, I can say that definitely I'm less skeptical of employing the services of a psychic.
I've never used a psychic until this, but the information she gave was pinpoint accurate. A psychic gives us insights that we don't have.
When this case came to a close and I got the phone call that they had found Loretta Bowersock, it was just a sigh of relief that it was finally over.
Ta Benderly was never tried for the murder of Loretta Bowersock. A dead man can't be put on trial.
I felt so bad that I hadn't done something, to rescue her. I hadn't taken her out of the house earlier. I've learned there's a lot of women out there that are lonely and desperate for love. And that, unfortunately, there's men that will take advantage of that. And so I would just simply say to women, if you feel like there's something wrong with the person you're with and you haven't checked them out, do.
This time on Psychic Investigators, a young woman vanishes without a word.
In the back of my mind, she was hitchhiking and somebody gotten a hold of her.
The police think she's run away, but a psychic sees murder.
I feel it was a crime of passion.
The case goes cold for almost 30 years.
We thought that, something more could be done on the case. Let's take another look at it and see where it goes.
But can a psychic's visions crack a cold case from so long ago?
You really can't expect somebody that's been lying for 25 years to all of a sudden say, I did it.
Los Altos, California, in the foothills of the Santa Cruz Mountains. Once known for its orchards, by the late 1970s, it's become a bedroom community for Bay Area commuters.
It was a very quiet, calming place. It was affluent as it is today. The people who lived here cared greatly about their community.
Los Altos is a safe haven, a good place to raise a family, or so it seemed. On March 28, 1978, 17-year-old Laura Ann Byerly, a student at Los Altos High, vanishes without a trace. When she doesn't come home that night, her parents file a missing persons report. Police quickly decide Laura has run away, with good reason.
She had run away at least 6 times, and she had had problems with her parents. She would run away, she would disappear. She had been gone for several weeks, and then she would reappear, come back home. She'd always keep in contact with her friends, and then, come back into the household to make amends with her mom.
Mary Cressy has been Laura's best friend since the 8th grade.
Every time that she ran away, I was always the first person she'd go to. She ran away, but she always came right back.
Her parents, Irwin and Betty Byerly, are sure that this time she hasn't run away. Recently, she's been turning her life around.
She was rebuilding her relationship with her parents. She had decent friends and wanted to change.
But the police are certain that Laura has taken off, and her friends are hiding it.
So you guys saw her yesterday, and if you guys have seen her, you know her.
They questioned us about last time we had seen Laura. And they said, well, has she contacted you? And I said, no. I was like a sister to Laura. We stuck together through everything. We would take her parents' station wagon out, and we'd unhook the speedometer so they wouldn't know we were going somewhere. We would say we'd be in town going shopping, but actually we'd hit Santa Cruz. She was just a social butterfly. She trusted people.
At the Byerly's insistence, police proceed with a routine missing persons investigation. They discover that the day she disappeared, Laura broke up with one young man, Scott Schultz, and made a date with another, John McFoland.
The day she had disappeared, she had gone to school that morning. She had the same class as this John McFoland in the morning. 2 witnesses say they saw her leaving, going into the parking lot area. She did not go to her second period class. She was never seen again.
The police question Laura's ex, Scott Schultz.
He tells the police that he was home and he never saw Laura. He thought she was going to hitchhike over to the house.
The police have no reason to doubt Scott Schultz. Laura is known to hitchhike. With no witnesses and no evidence of foul play, the investigation winds down. But there's still no sign of Laura, and her mother won't give up.
She didn't know why she would run away. She didn't know why she just disappeared. She had no idea what happened.
Betty felt in her heart something had gone wrong. I was the one that suggested to hire a psychic, and that's where Annette Martin came in.
Annette Martin is a well-respected California psychic who's helped to solve crimes for law enforcement agencies across the country, including the FBI. 10 days after her daughter's disappearance, Betty Byerly visits the psychic and provides her with a photograph of Laura.
I close my eyes and I take a couple of deep breaths, and immediately I begin to receive impressions from that photograph. Laura did not run away at all. The police are wrong.
Then, the psychic says something no mother wants to hear.
The most difficult thing in the world is to tell a mother that her child is dead.
"17-year-old Laura Byerly has gone missing from her Los Altos home. Desperate to find her daughter, Betty Byerly has met with a psychic. What she tells her is devastating.
You mean my daughter's dead?
It feels that way.
Oh my God.
It feels that way.
Oh my God.
I'm not getting any impulses of life here. She's very cold. Very cold to me.
Then the psychic offers another striking revelation. She names the killer.
I saw a name, and the name was Scott. She goes, "That's her boyfriend." Then I saw that he had taken her to this place that was in the woods and saw him driving down towards Santa Cruz. They were arguing and fighting. I saw him shaking her. I feel it was a crime of passion. And then I saw him bury her in a very shallow grave. Betty was in a state of shock. I had said that the police would not find her body, but I saw a hiker finding her body. And I said to Betty, have they spoken to this Scott? And she said, yes, they have.
Betty clings to the hope the psychic is wrong. But in her heart, she believes Laura is dead, murdered by her boyfriend, and buried in the Santa Cruz Mountains.
I remember sitting in her mom's living room and crying our eyes out together, going, no, it can't happen. It can't happen to her only daughter.
Laura's mother turns the tape over to the police and begs them to look more closely at Scott Schultz. She tells them that Laura and Scott have been dating for 6 months, that he's bad news, controlling and possessive, a dropout who's going nowhere.
With Scott, she seemed to be a different person. She would sit there and would clam up. I felt in my heart that she was almost afraid of him.
But Laura was moving away from her boyfriend. The morning she disappeared, she broke up with him in a long phone call Laura's mother describes to police.
The phone call started about 1:40 in the morning, and they talked for 4 hours. According to Laura, they talk about their relationship, how she's, no longer wants a relationship with him. He's very emotional. He cries on the phone several times related to them breaking up, and that she's going in a different direction. In the morning, she notices that Laura's crying, and Laura tells her, hey, I just broke up with Scott. I broke up with him on the phone. I feel bad that I didn't do it in person. And the mom just tells her, hey, don't worry about it. Just go to school. Things will get better.
It's the last time Betty Byerly sees her daughter alive. Despite the psychic's suspicions, the police still have nothing to link Scott to Laura's disappearance. The police have nothing on him, and no reason to believe Laura has been murdered. However, they search a small section of the mountains where the psychic says Laura will be found. But they find nothing. Police set the case aside. Weeks and months go by with no news. Then, more than a year after Laura vanished, hikers in the Big Basin State Park make a grisly find.
April 1979, some hikers in the Santa Cruz Mountains going along a trail. Their dog goes off to the side, and he brings out what appears to be a bone. The people kind of look at it, and then they discover that, hey, this is a human mandible. They also find some clothing and some other items, and they gather all these items. So they go alert the ranger who then calls the police department. They recognize it as a crime scene.
The Santa Cruz County coroner concludes the young woman has been dead for at least a year. Her name is Laura Byerly. The police contact Mary Cressy, now living in Salem, Oregon.
They said that they'd like to fly in and interview me, and they would like to have me look at some items that belonged to Laura. I had to do this because her dad had died 6 months after Laura disappeared, and I don't think that her mom was able to handle the pressure. I had to identify her shoes, I had to identify her black polyester pants, and I had to identify her sheer flower top. That's all that was left. Her jewelry wasn't there, and Laura always wore jewelry. So I thought that was quite odd.
The Santa Cruz police join with Los Altos to investigate what is now considered a homicide. They re-interview witnesses, including Scott Schultz, but uncover no new leads.
The Los Altos detective re-interviewed Scott at that time. In fact, at this time, it's the most thorough interview of Scott done by the Los Altos Police Department. But he's really never really taken on as a major suspect in this case. They can't tie him to the crime scene. They can't tie him to her disappearance. He's just kind of a player that really has never been identified. As far as they're concerned, she was a runaway.
Again, the case goes cold. In 1996, Betty Byerly dies in a house fire. With both her parents dead, it seems Laura's memory is dying too. But in 2005, nearly 30 years after she vanished, cold case investigator Detective Michael Shembri gets a call from Laura's old friend, Mary Cressy.
It was always in the back of my mind that there had to be an answer to this. And I said, you need to pursue it. You need to keep after them, and you need to make sure that this does not get closed again.
She felt at the time, in 1978, that the police department really hadn't done a thorough investigation. And she thought that if we reopened the case and started contacting people, maybe something could be done. And especially in this case, because there was really no family members alive, and there was really nobody else that was, kind of holding a torch to get this thing done. We read it, and we thought that, something more could be done on the case. Let's take another look at it and see where it goes.
One detail in Laura's file that catches the detective's eye is a reference to psychic Annette Martin. But the tape of the psychic's reading is missing.
Mike Shembri called me on the phone and said to me, I was just wondering if you would possibly have a copy of that tape. And I said, yes. I keep a copy of every single murder case.
A lot of these old cases, you'll find that the family has made contact with a psychic. It's not uncommon. If somebody has this ability, that's great. And in this case, it's been open for 25 years. It's certainly not going to hurt. Annette had specific information about the location of the body and what took place. And that information given at that time was not that far off base.
The psychic had predicted Laura's murder and how her body would be found. But will her visions help the police track the killer? It's been nearly 30 years since the remains of 17-year-old Laura Byerly were found in the Santa Cruz Mountains. Her killer has never been found. Cold case investigator Michael Shembri listens to the long-lost tape of a psychic reading.
God definitely has something to do with her disappearance. He's very sick.
In it, the psychic zeroes in on the boyfriend, Scott Schultz, who police eliminated as a suspect all those years ago.
So I wanted to talk to her to see if there was any other information or any other feelings that maybe I could take a look at or would point me in a direction where I would get other evidence that would really help in this case. When you're listening to a psychic statement and you're reading the psychic statement, you're still a police officer. So you know that you're just taking this information and you're going to take it and see if you can do anything with it. Will it provide me a witness? Will it give me a better look at the crime scene? Will it show me a different location where they could have been earlier? Or give me something that I didn't have before? So that's how I looked at her information. Because you realize this information is not admissible in court. You can't walk into court and say, the psychic said that Scott Schultz killed her, so therefore we rest our case.
The deeper Shembri digs, the more his suspicions match the psychic's.
There were several facts that just didn't make any sense. The fact that she had talked to him that morning for 4 hours. She had gone to school and she had made a date in her first period class with her new boyfriend, John McFolin. Then she had a hair appointment later on at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. To me, a young lady that had just made a date with her new boyfriend, that had a hair appointment, she wouldn't run away. She wouldn't disappear unless something specifically happened to her.
Shembri tracks down Scott Schultz, now 46, and a mechanic in Loveland, Colorado. Before interviewing Scott, the detective talks to Cheryl Schultz, his ex-wife. The story she tells him only serves to heighten his suspicions.
She talks about an incident in 1990 where she is going through his items. She finds this box in the back of one of his dressers. And inside the box, she finds this article about this girl that has disappeared and the bones being found in the Santa Cruz Mountains. She also finds a ring, and she finds a couple other items. And she kind of wonders, who is this? He's never talked to me about this, but obviously it's pretty important because he's kept the article. Eventually she asks him about this, and he just kind of blows it off, just saying it was an ex-girlfriend. So you have that information. It's like, why would he keep these items?
Re-interviewing everyone who gave statements originally finally pays off. A woman who was a friend of Scott's reveals to Shembri that 30 years ago, Scott's uncle owned a weekend home 8 miles from where Laura's body was found. Scott knew the area well.
When I saw that he had an uncle that lived on China Grade, then I knew I could tie him to the crime scene. And once I knew I could tie him to the crime scene, then I knew this case was over with. All I had to do was build it up. All I had to do was get the circumstantial evidence that would put it all together, and that would give you enough probable cause to arrest this guy.
The 4-hour phone call, the box of mementos, now the connection to the crime scene. The detective has enough for a warrant. August 23, 2006. Shembri searches Scott's Colorado home. He discovers Laura's rings, her photograph, and a news clipping. Crucial evidence. Shembri gives psychic Annette Martin a call.
Michael Shembri told me that he was going the next day to Colorado to arrest Scott. And I said, oh, wonderful. Finally, we're going to have closure on this case.
Scott Schultz is arrested for the first-degree murder of his high school girlfriend, almost 3 decades earlier.
They called me up and said that they had just arrested Scott Schultz for the murder of Laura Byerly. I'll never forget it. And I just burst out in tears and said, finally.
Brian Welsh is the DA who prosecuted the case.
This really was a classic case of all the circumstantial evidence, when looked at in its entirety, pointed to Scott Schultz and his guilt. But he had steadfastly denied killing Laura when he had been interviewed on a number of occasions by the investigators.
Scott Schultz is extradited to California, where he pleads no contest to a reduced charge of voluntary manslaughter.
Voluntary manslaughter in this case is referred to as a heat of passion crime. Under California law, a person can plead either guilty or no contest. In this case, he pled no contest. At the time he entered the plea, the court informed him that a no contest plea would be treated as a guilty plea.
By pleading no contest, Scott Schultz avoids the uncertain outcome of a jury trial, and the full details of how Laura died are never revealed. But the cold case investigator's best guess is that she and Scott argued, emotions ran high, and Scott killed her in a fit of rage, just as the psychic visualized all those years ago.
Some people have the ability to see things. I mean, as you get older, there's a lot of things that you really firmly disbelieve when you were younger that as you get older, you say, you know what, maybe that's possible.
Because he was a minor at the time, Scott Schultz is sentenced to just 2 years in prison.
I was saddened. Here, my best friend's gone, and all he got was 2 years. Where's justice? I feel in my heart that justice will be done, and he will eventually have to pay the price fully.
One thing is certain. Without the psychic insights of Annette Martin and the dogged determination of a cold case detective, the murder of Laura Ann Byerly may have remained unsolved forever. This time on Psychic Investigators. A swimming instructor is found stabbed to death in a quiet Florida town.
Someone couldn't have walked out of it that wasn't covered with blood.
But the case is going nowhere fast.
There was no physical evidence to arrest him.
Until a psychic claims to see the killer.
It's just a disgusting crime of extreme terror.
But are his visions enough to crack the case?
He says, the killer's nearby, the killer's nearby.
(1977), Boynton Beach, Florida, an hour north of Miami. A quiet coastal town where people escape the troubles of everyday life. Violent crime generally happens someplace else. It's August, and Mae Wentz, a part-time swimming instructor, has run into trouble with her neighbors. Mae, unmarried and living alone, has a habit of leaving her door open for her beloved German Shepherd, Duke.
She would let her dog run loose and became a problem with the town. The neighbors complaining about dumping garbage cans and so forth.
By August 5th, her neighbors are so fed up, they report the dog. Duke is caught and taken to the pound. Days go by, and neighbors expect to see Mae looking for her dog. But there's no sign of her. Duke has been left stranded. Finally, on Sunday, August 7th, a worried neighbor checks in and smells a strange odor coming from the bedroom and immediately calls the police.
Mae Wentz was lying on the floor next to the bed. She had been stabbed.
Sergeant John DiBattista was the first on the scene.
There was a lot of blood all over the bedroom, on the walls, on the bed, on the floor.
Lieutenant Ed Hillary is the lead investigator in the case.
There were 2 pieces of a knife at the crime scene. One was the point of the knife, and then one was a broken part of the blade. We never found the handle.
Aside from this, the killer has left little evidence.
We were able to lift several latent fingerprints, but they were subsequently identified as belonging to Mae Wentz.
From the state of decomposition, police determine how long Mae Wentz has been dead.
We had a possible time span when the crime occurred, and that was 2 to 3 days.
But this only makes things harder for the police. It's the first 48 hours that are the most crucial in any murder investigation. And those hours are gone. Adding to the mystery, nothing in the house seems misplaced, ruling out robbery as a motive. And the autopsy later confirms that there was no sexual assault. Her only enemies, it seems, are feuding neighbors.
We had no reports of cars leaving the area quickly or anything like that, so we had the feeling, with the blood all over the walls, someone couldn't have walked out of it that wasn't covered with blood. If they went any distance, possibly someone would see him. We figured it was somebody nearby.
With little evidence, the detectives have their work cut out for them. The police contact May's family in New Jersey with the news.
I was shocked. There were all kinds of questions running through your mind that, what could have happened? Who could have done this?
The very concept that there might be someone out there randomly attacking women is always alarming to the community.
Laura Belgrave covered the story for the local paper.
I think the community felt fear and something of an anxiety for it to be solved. It was a woman brutally murdered in the kind of fashion that in particular scares all women. And because no one knew who the killer was, you have to worry, is there some crazy out there? Is this someone who could break into my house? She was just an everyday person.
Over the next few days, the police learned more about the 41-year-old swimming instructor.
May was a kind and gentle and quiet person. She had a lot to give to people. She was very active with her swimming lessons. I would go up maybe every few weeks and we'd go out water skiing or just go down to the beach. It was good times.
As the police dig deeper, the mystery widens.
You ask 10 different people about May Wentz and they'll give you 10 different answers.
She didn't get along very well with neighbors. Not to the extent that, there was altercations or anything like that, but a lot of verbal stuff back and forth. They'd get a lead and they'd say, this is it, we're going to, and it would peter out. It was difficult. It could have been anybody.
But two neighbors do stand out from the crowd. Brothers Darris and Jerry Mills both have a long history with local law enforcement. They live directly across the street from May Wentz.
They had been involved with Boynton Beach Police Department on several different occasions. Drunken, disorderly, fighting, and things like that.
With no other leads, police decide to check them out. Detective DiBattista conducts a voice stress analysis, a test similar to a lie detector. It measures psychophysiological stress responses in the human voice.
The voice stress analysis that I performed on Jerry, I asked him several questions, and he showed deception, he showed stress on several of the controlled questions. And it was my opinion that he had knowledge of the homicide. As far as Darris Mills goes, he didn't show deception.
Based on the interviews, Detective DiBattista suspects Jerry Mills knows more than he's saying, but his hands are tied.
There was no physical evidence of which to arrest him.
All you got was sort of a floating, well, that week I might have done this or I might have done that. I was drunk, I got in a fight. That's the kind of stuff you'd get from them, but nothing you could pin them down with as to where they were.
Weeks go by, and the May Wentz case is slowly going cold. By a strange twist of fate, the National Enquirer is holding a psychic demonstration in Boynton Beach. The chief of police has been invited, but he tells Detective Ed Hillary to go in his place.
I said, you got to be kidding. I said, you want me to go see a spoon twister? He says, yeah, I want you to go up there for me because I promised him I'd be there.
Before Ed left, I said, Ed, why don't you talk to the psychic? Maybe we can get him to take a look at the May Wentz case. Ed wasn't very happy when I asked him about that, using black magic to solve homicides. But we had no physical evidence to go on. It had worked in the past. Let's try it.
At the demonstration, Detective Hillary meets with well-known psychic Phil Jordan and learns he's also deputy sheriff in his hometown of Ithaca, New York.
My psychic insights with police investigation are to perceive impressions about a crime that ordinary investigation has not been able to come up with.
The fact that he had been used to find people that were lost, find bodies, That impressed me.
The detective invites Phil Jordan to the station to look into the case. But will his psychic insights help to solve the brutal murder of Mae Wentz?
She's trying to fight. There's blood spattering all over.
41-year-old Mae Wentz is found stabbed to death in her Boynton Beach, Florida home. 4 weeks have passed. The killer is still at large. With no hard evidence and dwindling leads, detectives turn to psychic Phil Jordan for help.
And I had all the files here to give me. He said, no, I don't want to touch that. I don't want to know anything about the file. Just give me a picture.
As I looked at the picture of Mae Wentz, I began to perceive a lot of different things. I felt her to be a very independent woman. I felt she was a good person, but very much an individual, very much to herself. I see that she's a twin. I see a pink house. I began to sense things about the murder itself. And I see them violently stabbing Mae Wentz.
Phil Jordan is dead right about the way Mae Wentz died.
From not knowing anything about it, told us that she was stabbed. It was pretty amazing.
Even more astounding, Mae did have a twin, her sister Loretta.
The fact that he knew that there was a twin before we did certainly impressed me.
The police are also intrigued at the mention of a pink house.
They took me to the scene of the crime. They told me that this was the house the crime occurred in, and I was taken back a bit because I perceived the house to be pink in color.
As it turns out, the house was pink.
We noticed right away that the house was a different color because the owner of the house had repainted it after it was cleaned up, and I guess he was getting ready to try and rent it or sell it.
I immediately felt I had to go in the house because I believed that's where the crime did occur. I had an eerie feeling about the bedroom. I stood in the doorway and I began to sense things. I see a person. I see him coming into the house. I see that he's wearing a brown uniform. I see Mae Wentz. And I see the crime beginning to be created. She's trying to fight. She was aware of who was doing it. And I see him stabbing her with a knife. Her body's being punctured with that knife. There's blood spattering all over. You actually feel the knife penetrating your own being where it penetrated her being. And then as the chaos continued, I realized that the tip of the knife was broken off. It hit a part of her body or a bone that broke the tip of the knife right off. Then I feel the need to get out of there. Something's drawing me to the outside. The person that committed this crime was close.
Phil walked across the street and he stopped.
It's almost like a suffocating feeling. A fear or a paranoia overcomes you.
He says, my God, the killer's nearby. The killer's nearby.
And he's looking right at the Mills Brothers' house. That really got me.
Now I'm becoming a believer because we never told him that the Mills residence was where we had suspects. It was kind of creepy.
The psychic's revelations seem to confirm what the police already suspect, that one of the Mills brothers killed May Wentz. But where is the rest of the broken knife?
I immediately asked myself, where would the handle of the knife be? The thing that kept coming to me was under a boat, under a boat. Where is the boat? The boat is where the perpetrator of the crime lives.
John and I both looked in the backyard looking for this boat.
But they find nothing. Phil Jordan returns to New York, leaving the police to figure out the meaning of the brown uniform and the boat.
Driving back in the car, John and I were looking at each other and say, this guy's on point with things. Let's tell the guys that we possibly should be looking for someone in a brown uniform, maybe a delivery guy. Find out if we can develop any suspects in the area.
Intrigued by the psychic's vision of a boat, the detective has an idea.
John says, you know what we got to do? We have to look at those aerial photographs.
As far as aerial photographs, that's a standard operating procedure any homicide for the crime scene investigator to go up and take aerial photographs of the neighborhood. We went back to headquarters. The first thing we did is we checked the photographs, and we found a boat.
Phil Jordan was right. There was a boat at the Mills residence. Could this be where the murder weapon was thrown on the night of the crime?
On the day the photographs were taken, that was just shortly after the event. When Phil came, there was no boat behind the house. It had been moved.
Although the police now have evidence that there was a boat, they can't get a search warrant on the word of a psychic.
We had no reason to go on the Mills property because, you know, he needed probable cause, and we had no probable cause.
But now, there's another twist.
Investigation brought to light that Darris Mills worked for a landscaping company that wore brown uniforms.
Is this the brown uniform that Phil Jordan claimed to see? Prompted by the psychic's remarkable visions, May Wentz's neighbor, Darris Mills, is now the prime suspect. But without any concrete evidence, how can the police prove he is the killer? A small Florida town is gripped in fear when a swimming instructor is brutally murdered in her home. With the help of psychic Phil Jordan, police now have a prime suspect in their sights, but they can do nothing.
In any murder investigation, you're going to have to be able to tie the victim and the perpetrator together. You got to have some physical evidence or eyewitness or something.
It's very frustrating that you can't make an arrest. When you know deep down that somebody committed the crime.
Sergeant DeBattista and I were particularly bummed out by this because we had a perfect record. It was a thing of pride also for us. And we were working real hard on it. That's the part that hurt, was we wanted to continue that record. We wanted to get this bad guy off the streets, and we just couldn't get it done.
The detectives believe Darris Mills is the killer, but with no proof, the case slowly goes cold.
The investigation continued for several months till everything just sort of ran out. It was looked at less and less and less. Over 3 years, it had petered out to the point where it was a cold case until it just went away. But it didn't go away in our minds, I'll tell you that.
The community really wanted an end and a resolution to the May Wentz case. There was a loss that shouldn't have been. And when you go and you see a neighborhood where this has taken place, for example, it's changed somehow. It's almost in the air.
May's family continues to pressure the police for answers.
As a family member, you don't want the police to stop. You want them to spend every minute of the day on solving that crime. If this happened again, who would be to blame?
Over the years, psychic Phil Jordan stays in touch with detectives from his home in Ithaca, New York.
Though the investigation is cold, the psychic impressions are the same whether they would be 3 years or 23 years. You become so involved in the case that you actually feel a part of the case. And I was sure that Darris Mills was the person involved with the crime.
But the case gathers dust on the shelf for 3.5 years, until the police unexpectedly catch a break. On March 9, 1981, Darris Mills is brought in on burglary charges. Police call Phil Jordan to let him know.
When I have a case where we have somebody in custody, I would either do prayers that they would turn themselves in or confess to the crime. That doesn't always have to be verbally done. That can be done just through concentrated effort and thought.
Darris is incarcerated in the county jail. In the middle of the night, he woke up screaming and hollering. The jailer went to him. He says, "I killed a woman in Boynton Beach." He says, "I killed her. I killed May Wentz."
Darris Mills tells police that voices in his head urged him to confess to May Wentz's murder. On the night of August 3, 1977, Darris Mills says he went to May's house looking for sex. He claimed they had a one-night stand a few years earlier. Since she always left her door open for the dog, Darris had easy access to the house. He had a knife. He woke her up. They started to fight. Darris choked her and stabbed her until the knife broke. He then fled the house with the handle and threw it in his backyard.
Some of the stuff he said is just tremendous. No question about it. It was on point.
The fact that the knife had been thrown by a boat, and the fact that he knew the gentleman had a brown uniform, he lived in the neighborhood close by. I mean, these weren't things that he was just kind of guessing at.
Darris Mills is convicted on second-degree murder charges. He is later diagnosed with schizophrenia. But could the voices that prompted Darris Mills to confess be something else?
For me, the power of prayer is one of the strongest energies and strongest powers in the world. And I like to believe that that does have strong significance. And I believe in this case it did.
You almost have to believe in psychic power. It really can't be denied.
I'm not going to rule anything out. Apparently it worked.
Some people believe that psychics are fakes or phonies, but I believe that some people do have a gift or a power to be able to foresee things or visualize things.
Whatever prompted Darris to confess, the killer is now behind bars.
Nothing is worse for an investigator than to leave an open case. I was very relieved.
That made us feel good. Bad guy zero. That's the way we felt. Having interfaced with a psychic, I was impressed. As a chief, would I talk to my investigator who's hit the wall? Yeah, I'd tell him to try a psychic.
It works. If they can help you solve a case, I think it's well worth trying.
May Wentz's family can finally begin to find closure.
It puts a spot in your heart. You've lost something that's not going to come back, but maybe the process of this being over with can begin.
Grief stops our life. In a tragic death such as May Wentz, it's hard to continue from beyond that point, especially if there's unanswered questions.
This time on Psychic Investigators, a young mother vanishes.
Send me a sign. Where are you?
And the police can't find her.
No leads came, nothing.
Until a psychic tunes into her spirit.
Little blips of things that were coming through.
And claims to see what no one else can.
Could feel her getting dizzy, heart fluttering.
But are his visions too late?
I didn't feel she was alive.
Is the damage already done?
Wasn't adding up. People involved, they got away with something.
In the shadow of New York City sits Sayreville, New Jersey. Once an industrial powerhouse, by 1996, a bedroom community. Not only do commuters cross the bridge from the big city, but drugs and the damage they do also make their way to Sayreville. On June 1st, 22-year-old single mom Nicole Arokas heads out for a night on the town with friends. The former NYU student lives at home with her parents, leaving her 16-month-old daughter, Dylan, in their care.
She was a good mother. I thought, oh, she's going to be asking me to babysit all the time. And I was just out of all that stuff. And I only had one child, and I didn't want to get back into that. And she didn't. Maybe once a month, you know, she'd ask me to babysit. And always after Dylan was already sleeping at night.
But when Nicole fails to return home that night, her parents know something is very wrong. Recently, Nicole has been hanging out with a bad crowd, with a taste for booze and drugs.
I knew that if she didn't come home and didn't let us know something was wrong, that she couldn't.
The next morning, Nicole's father, Jerry, now deceased, heads straight to the Sayreville police to file a missing persons report. Detective Jim Novak is put in charge of the case.
Parents know if something's really wrong with their child. So what do you think? Mr. Arokas came out and said that I think she's dead.
Before you suspect foul play, you try and rule out all of the other common things that normally you find in a missing persons case, especially an adult. There's really no crime to be a missing person.
A description of Nicole and her vehicle, a black 1980 Chevy Malibu, are fed into the National Crime Information Computer System.
To see if any other police department in the United States ever had contact with that license plate. And there was no one that ran her license plate, or her car wasn't found somewhere and run by the police.
Jerry Arokas gives Detective Novak details about his daughter. She didn't like to drive her own car, especially at night. And he wasn't too fond of her choice of friends.
He didn't particularly care for her boyfriend, Michael Reed.
Detective Novak knows Mike Reed. Reed is a suspect in a recent string of car burglaries.
I always thought he was the best liar I've ever met. He would lie to me and smile as he did it. It was almost like Charles Manson type thing.
But her father's biggest fear is that his daughter's recent drug habit, heroin, might have something to do with her disappearance. Detectives start by interviewing some of Nicole's friends, Eric Nordling, Todd Connors, and Mike Reed.
Detectives went into the house to check the house for Nicole. Other detectives interviewed the three occupants, Eric, Todd, and Michael.
And everyone denied having any further contact other than seeing Nicole leave that night to go what they called out to several bars to do some drinking.
As we were leaving, Michael called to me. He said, Mr. Novak, I want you to know, I didn't love Nicole. We were only friends. I looked at Detective Sergeant Bragg, and simultaneously we said to each other, she's dead. And the reason we felt that way is because he used the past tense, and there was no reason at this point to think of Nicole as anything else than in the present. Unless there was.
But what? There's no evidence to back up a feeling. They continue to pursue the missing persons case, contacting local hospitals, checking towing reports and connecting with state police. 2 days go by, and there is no sign of Nicole or her car.
At this point in the investigation, we had no leads.
Once you don't come home for a number of days and no one hears from you for a number of days, now this person is really maybe not just a missing person on their own account, but maybe in fact some kind of foul play may have occurred here.
I would go out on the back porch every night and just look around and say, just send me a sign, something. Where are you? I know you're out here somewhere.
Desperate for any answers, the family is willing to try anything.
My uncle Walt Werner worked for the Hackensack Police Department, and he suggested a psychic that the police force sometimes used.
Frank St. James lives in New Jersey and has a reputation for finding missing persons.
I'm like a human satellite or something, going anywhere. Little blips of things I could draw in, get real close. Sometimes they come really quick in flashes. It's like looking through their eyes.
But his one rule? No immediate family members in the session. Diane Macaluso, Pat Arokas's best friend, goes in her place.
My husband and I took a tape recorder with us to record the session, and we took a picture of Nicole with us.
And what the picture shows him, no one really wants to hear.
I tell you, I don't have a good feeling about it. She did expire sometime Sunday morning.
Single mother Nicole Arokas of Sayreville, New Jersey has been missing for 3 days. Psychic Frank St. James says she's dead.
She did expire sometime Sunday morning.
Oh, my heart sank when I heard that because I was still hoping that maybe she just went off with friends.
The psychic claims to be picking up images of Nicole from the night she went out with friends.
I pick up some drugs Saturday. The turnpike is off of there on one of those little side roads. She's not moving. She's not too far from home. I do feel something by Thursday.
Is the psychic right? Will they find Nicole by Thursday?
I didn't have hope that she was alive. I knew that when she didn't contact us and didn't come home, I knew it. But I just had to find her.
The Arokas invite the psychic to their home. Maybe here he can get a clearer picture of where their daughter might be. Left alone, he moves through the house. It's in the kitchen where Frank claims to connect with Nicole's spirit.
Nicole started to come through really easy. It looked like I was flying up above, near water, a dirt road, bridges, cattails, or her car in the marsh. One of the wheels was in the water, a feeling of closed in. I felt that if I was standing 25 feet away from where she was, I wouldn't be able to see her. I couldn't see it from the road. The only way is from above.
Nicole's father takes the tape of both psychic sessions to Detective Novak. The investigator is skeptical, but he's also reached a dead end.
I am not so naive to think that just because I don't have this special ability doesn't mean it wasn't given to someone else. No leads came, nothing. And it's not like we sat on our hands. I thought it doesn't hurt. Began checking all the areas that would resemble areas described by the psychic. There was an old railroad bridge, area where it was tall cattails, area where it was marshy land, ponds, lakes. We came up negative.
And then the detective remembers something else the psychic had said.
Have they tried a helicopter in any of those particular areas?
We're only 3 days into the investigation at this point, and I'm going to ask for a helicopter, because I felt I was going to meet with the resistance.
But the next day, Novak gets his helicopter. It's Thursday, June the 6th.
One of the pilots asked why we're using the state police helicopter. And I said, well, we're following the leads of a psychic with respect to a missing person. I'm saying to myself, oh, please, God, please let us find something. Because if we don't, I am never going to live this down.
5 minutes later, above a secluded marshy area, very similar to what the psychic visualized, they do spot something.
The pilot asked what type of vehicle we were looking for, and I explained to him it was a black Chevy we were looking for. At that point, he said, I think I see something down in the weeds right along the Raritan Bay. As the helicopter made several circles above it to find a landing spot where we could land the helicopter, you could see that there was, in fact, someone inside the vehicle.
But what they see from the air is not so easy to see on the ground.
Well, it was necessary to land on the beach area because of the tall cattails and the debris. It was a landfill, maybe a mile square, just covered with the cattails. You couldn't see anything. We each went in different directions, and as I approached this one curve, I was surprised because suddenly I saw the car, maybe 25 feet from the curve. The psychic indicated that you could be 25 feet from the car and not see it.
The psychic had also said that he had a bad feeling about Nicole, that she was dead.
Look in and I see the remains of what appeared to be a female. I noticed the position of her body. Car doors were locked. I radioed in the registration. It confirmed that it was, in fact, Nicole's car.
Once we opened the door of the vehicle, she didn't appear to be seated behind the driver's seat, that she happened to be more in the center of the vehicle between the driver's and the passenger side, that the vehicle was still in gear and the ignition wasn't all the way on.
Inside, police find a letter in Nicole's purse, dated June 1st, the night she disappeared.
That appeared to be a semi-suicide note. Yet, there was no evidence that a suicide had occurred here.
I remember being happy that they found her. But it was like I wanted to pass out and I couldn't. I was like halfway, but you know.
My heart just ached for Pat and Jerry and Dylan.
The autopsy finds the cause of death acute morphine toxicity, a heroin overdose. The county prosecutor rules her death a suicide, but was it?
It didn't make any sense to me that she would do that.
It doesn't add up for the detectives either. First, there's Nicole's letter found in her purse.
The ink on a date was a different color than the body of the letter, and I thought that was strange.
Her mother confirms that Nicole often recorded her feelings, however dark.
Nothing that went through her mind wasn't written down somewhere. Because she was living a dangerous life, and in case something happened, she wanted to make sure that people knew things, especially Dylan.
Then, the location of the car.
And I kept in mind what Nicole's father had told me. She didn't like driving at night, and she would have to drive over discarded railroad ties and roofing material that was discarded in the area. There was no way that Nicole drove herself to this particular location, especially at night. Somebody had to have driven her car there.
And some of the things that really stood out were what wasn't there. No drug paraphernalia, there was no needles, no syringes, other than a ligature on the floor.
And then Detective Novak remembers what the psychic said on the tape. Nicole was not alone when she died.
There's at least 2 or 3 of them. They were there. They know what happened.
There's more to this than suicide.
"22-year-old Nicole Arokas has been found dead inside her car, abandoned in a secluded New Jersey marsh. It's ruled a suicide, but a psychic says others were involved, and the lead detective thinks so too.
Anyone reading that letter could easily draw the logical conclusion that this was a suicide. However, they didn't have the information that I had. Her boyfriend, on the first day of the investigation, referred to Nicole in the past tense. The position of her body, the fact that the car was locked.
Most families, once a loved one commits suicide, kind of realize after looking back that the signs of suicide were there. They were depressed or they were having some type of problem. The parents were pretty insistent that they didn't believe that Nicole had taken her own life. And if she did in fact do that, then the crime scene would have been totally different. Usually when you die from a heroin overdose, the death is pretty instantaneous to the injection. There isn't time to remove the syringe from the vehicle, clean up the papers, dust off the dashboard, and make the car kind of neat. If you're going to inject yourself, you probably would have the car in park. The vehicle had actually been left in gear. If she had been, say, trying to leave the scene and all of a sudden the overdose kicked in and killed her, then that vehicle would have run out of gas before the police found her. Yet once we put the vehicle in neutral and turned the key on, it started right up. The suicide note was folded up in her pocketbook. You would probably leave it out in the vehicle. So everything that seemed to be a suicide just didn't seem to be adding up.
If she didn't commit suicide, how did she die? Novak suspects Todd Connors, Eric Nordling, and her boyfriend, Mike Reed.
Couldn't imagine why people I suspected would do such a thing to a friend.
For the detectives, there seems to be only one answer.
Under New Jersey law, if you cause someone's death by giving them a narcotic, it's technically a homicide.
I brought in the people involved. Got nowhere.
The case is officially closed, but for Novak, it's still open.
Sometimes it's better to take a step back, let the people involved come to the belief that they got away with something, and they begin to talk and tell friends.
Over the next 3 months, his strategy starts to pay off.
Just as much as I was repulsed by what had happened to Nicole, the friends of Eric, Todd, and Mike Reed were just as repulsed, because we began getting information through informants with respect to what is being said. Mike Reed shot up Nicole, and she OD'd, and he dumped her out in the landfill.
That information wouldn't have been admissible in court because it's hearsay.
To have any chance of charging Mike Reed, they need confessions from the people who were with Nicole when she died. They keep waiting.
After the call was processed at police headquarters, it was parked outside for the longest period of time. And every time I left police headquarters, I would look over at the car and I would say, "Come on, Nicole, help me out here." I repeated that probably 100 times.
For the next 3 months, the case eats away at the detective until one December night.
I was serving warrants at an apartment complex, totally unrelated to this, and I find this necklace. It was a child's necklace, the name Nicole.
Although it's not Nicole's necklace, the detective sees it as a sign.
And I thought, this is Nicole's response to me. Maybe it's time that I bring these people in and talk to them again.
But Mike Reed is in jail on an unrelated charge. So Novak brings in his friends, Eric Nordling and Todd Connors.
Eric was the first one to go in because we felt he was the weakest link. Sergeant Burns made Eric aware that he was familiar with Eric's family. His family would be disappointed with what they had done with Nicole. At that point, Eric tears up. Eric began to tell.
But Todd Connors admits to nothing.
I just confronted him. I yelled at him. This is what you do to her? You leave her there and rot? And he just looked away. We knew he had him. But he said he didn't want to talk anymore.
Novak needs statements from both Connors and Nordling in order to charge Mike Reed with Nicole's death. A few weeks later, he gets his chance. He brings Todd Connors in on a contempt of court warrant from a nearby town. But this time, he ups the ante. Novak brings in an investigator from the county prosecutor's office. She threatens to charge Connors with obstruction if he doesn't talk. It's Connors' last chance, and it works. Todd finally corroborates what Eric Nordling has already admitted, and what the psychic saw 6 months earlier, that Nicole was not alone when she died. According to their statements, around 8 p.m. on June 1st, 1996, Nicole, Todd, Eric, and Mike Reed head out to buy drugs. A half hour later in Perth Amboy, Nicole cashes her welfare check. At 9 p.m. in Newark, Mike Reed buys heroin. At a rest stop off the Garden State Parkway, Eric and Todd shoot up. Mike Reed shoots up Nicole. Todd and Eric fall asleep. When they come to, they're at the landfill, and Nicole is unconscious. Unable to revive her, they panic. But Mike Reed shows them the letter, the one the police initially took as a suicide note. He wipes down the car, removes all the evidence, and locks the doors. All three walk the 2 miles back to Todd Connors' house.
She would have never done that to them. That's what bothered me. Never. Even if she had to be found guilty, she would have never done that.
On December 16, 1996, Michael Reed is charged with the drug-induced death of Nicole Arokas. He pleads guilty and is sentenced to 10 years in prison. Todd Connors and Eric Nordling walk free. Obstruction charges against them are dropped in exchange for their statements.
We had nothing. We found Nicole based on the information supplied to us by the psychic, Frank St. James. And that's it. It's just, I don't see how anyone could dispute it.
I can't explain it, nor would I even attempt to. I would certainly not have a problem with talking to a psychic or talking to the devil himself if it would help us solve some of our unsolved crimes.
I've done hundreds of cases. This was particularly gratifying, I guess, too, and sad at the same time, but I felt I helped the family at least.
Nothing goes right forever. There's no closure. You never see them again. She didn't have a normal funeral. None of it was the same. Everything was messed up.